This is Lars Walker. You're listening to All Over the Place, where the fun sanity never ends.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to All Over the Place, the official podcast of Media Pub Live. I'm your host, Eric Provoznik, and let's say hello to Christine.
Hello.
And Jim Culver.
Hey, hey.
All right. Our Threefer this week is Top American Authors plus one American Playwright. And as we were talking about pre-show, in our short history in this country, we've got some pretty kick-ass authors to lean back on for our Threefers. So I'm going to try to keep the our honorable mentions to a minimum, but let's just jump right in with our resident literary expert, Christine, taking us.
Yay.
On the start.
Awesome.
You knew this one was coming. You knew it.
Well, good, bad, or indifferent, I am going to start with a quote from Allen Ginsberg from his Kill Your Darlings. Like all lovers and sad people, I am a poet. So, yeah, like I said, say what you want about Allen Ginsberg what he did, but he was an amazing writer.
Whatever you think of Ginsberg, the man had a way with words, and there's no doubt about it. Like,
yeah,
amazing writer.
Yeah, so amazing writer, poet. Hate him, love him for his politics or whatever, but that is what it is. But I'm actually going to start with, I love Vonnegut, but a more modern essayist that I absolutely love was Robert Fulghum. He's very well known for his Everything I Need to Know I Learned in Kindergarten. And also It Was on Fire When I Lay Down on It. He's got like a bunch of books, awesome essayist, just, grand looker at life. And so that's my number 3 pick.
All right, Jim, over to you.
All right, my number 3 is the only living author on my list, which is probably a blessing and a curse because we have to listen to his thoughts in the modern day. But he is one of my favorite writers. I grew up reading his stuff, and just massively influential. And so I can't not include him, and that's Stephen King. He was my favorite writer as a teenager. Loved horror, and he just amazingly prolific, and obviously had a massive impact on the culture in the 20th century. Not just horror, but all kinds of genres, and just insanely talented as far as just his ability to kind of put our minds into the headspace of horror, and incredibly influential. I actually read the first thing he ever wrote. It was a short story when he was 12 or 13, and it was about this. It was like a sci-fi horror story about a robot waking up on an assembly line and attaining consciousness and trying to find a way to survive. And it was horrifying. I mean, just from that point of view, it was a terrifying book and just a little short story, but it was pretty terrifying stuff. And I've always liked his stuff, especially his anthologies, but all of his books are really good. The movies are hit or miss, shall we say? But he's incredibly good writer, massively influential, and sadly a bit of a lunatic based on his Twitter feed. But it is what it is. And so that's my number 3.
I follow him on Twitter. He's quite entertaining.
I'm sorry.
I love his evil dog.
I believe it or not, I also follow him on Twitter, but to take it with a grain of salt in a lot of cases, as with about everybody on Twitter, no matter what. Yeah. No, he's, like I said, very prolific and a huge influence on my what I was reading, and I think we brought it up on the show in high school especially. But I'm going to get to him a little bit later, but kind of not a pick. But there will be. I'll bring him up a little bit later. For my number 3 is one of my favorite SEs. There's S.E. Provoznik. There's S.E. Cupp, the political commentator, and S.E. Hinton. Everyone has read The Outsiders, and whether it's didn't have, it's kind of like the opposite of prolific, but everything that she wrote, I mean, there's one that I did not read that came out in the late 80s, I believe, and the name's escaping me, but The Outsiders, I think every 7th or 8th grader reads that one, and for damn good reason. It's a brilliant book and became a brilliant movie. And also adaptations of That Was Then, This Is Now, Tex, Rumblefish. S.E. Hinton just captured language, and I love the underdog, and she's her protagonists are not the rich kids, it's just America. It's just Joe Average, or maybe a little bit below average, but the underdog. I love that about her writing. So that is my number 3 pick.
Awesome.
Yeah, that was Then, This Is Now. A great book. Lighten up, and great stuff. Love that read as a kid.
And I just noticed, Christine, do you see what's in Jim's background next to his Army of Darkness poster? A little bit to the right of it. It's the chainsaw from Majestic Theaters.
Oh, yes! Yes, that's wonderful.
Mm-hmm. It felt like it was appropriate in the location. And all.
I like it. No, it's next to Bruce, so yeah, I dig it. So I'm glad that we were able to. We didn't need to. Christine would probably think we don't need one anymore, but at least we shed our skin of one. So awesome. And speaking of Christine, back to you for your second pick.
Yes. Well, my second pick is definitely all-American author, best known for The Great Gatsby. Several books. Just the romance of the 20s and just what life was like, and his writing just epitomizes what I imagine things would be like living in like the Northeast United States, and just over the summers, and the golfing community, the Hamptons, and just very romantic kind of money and lifestyle and all of that stuff. Which, it's a very romantic thing to think about. But one of his short stories is actually my favorites, Winter Dreams. And I actually was going to do a quote from it. For the first time in years, the tears were streaming down his face, but they were for himself now. He did not care about mouth and eyes and moving hands. He wanted to care. He could not care, for he had gone away and he could never go back anymore. The gates were closed. The sun was gone down, and there was no beauty but the gray beauty of steel that withstands all time. Even the grief he could have borne was left behind in the country of illusion, of youth, of the richness of life, where his winter dreams had flourished. Wow.
This, folks,
that stuff shook me to my core, and I was just like, holy crap.
This is why she was a literature major. Damn. I was just waiting for like a little quip quote, but no. It's F. Scott Fitzgerald. You can't have
that whole passage. Just was good stuff. So Fitzgerald's one of my favorite authors.
Yeah, something about Gatsby and some of his other stories. There's just something about them that captures a time and really has endured thematically. People still, they still see the movie adaptations of Great Gatsby. They still read it to this day. There's something about it that speaks to people even 100 years later, after Gatsby's age has passed, and it's really part of it's definitely part of the American psyche.
Books that you were forced to read in high school, but that turned out to be, this is why we are reading this, and we should have to read this stuff. Excellent American author. Nice call. Now, Jim, over to you.
All right. So, my number 2. So, if my last pick, Stephen King, was the person who kind of defines modern horror, my number 2 is someone who basically created modern horror, and that's Edgar Allan Poe. He's, just absolutely incredible. I really don't think anything has captured such a unique mood, the way he infused this kind of gothic horror and tragedy and into this kind of melancholy writing. If anybody attempts that now, they're just labeled as Edgar Allan Poe-esque, and so that just gives you an idea of how influential he was. And he actually wrote a lot of detective stories too, and he gets a lot of credit for basically inventing the detective story with his Pym books. So yeah, insanely good writer. His work is absolutely haunting, and of course massively influential. I mean, even last year there was a new adaptation of The Fall of the House of Usher. I mean, we keep going back to these kind of horrifying stories over and over again because there's something about them. Even we're long past the period that he wrote them in, so the aesthetics feel kind of dated, but there's something really like basic and elemental he captures in his stories. Fear, whether it's fear or longing or melancholy, and that really just speaks to us right in our souls, I think. And he obviously lived a very painful life and a difficult life, and he was able to really channel that into his writing in a way that I think still speaks to people in every generation.
And the poems, I mean, just beautiful love with Lenore and Annabelle Lee.
Yeah, I remember reading Annabelle Lee in high school, and it just stuck with me forever.
That's Edgar Allan Poe.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's from The Master of Macabre, or as I pronounced it before I learned the correct pronunciation, The Master of Macabre. Yeah, no. Let's pronounce that right. I was 8 or 9 years old when I started reading Poe. I learned quickly how to pronounce the French word correctly. So
yeah, I was about that age when I thought there was a book called Tequila Mockingbird. So kids being kids.
Nice. Well, Jim, that's you just got the ultimate revenge on me for any time I've stepped on one of your picks. So I will shift to a new number one now.
Apologies for that.
No, hey, it was bound to happen. I mean, look, Edgar Allan Poe is Edgar Allan Poe. He's the master of macabre for a reason. But I'm going to go with my number two, though, is for me the master of crime fiction or just fiction. And he's one of the few people that I've read. I think he may be the only fiction writer I've read in the last 30 years since college, where again I had to read certain things. But Elmore Leonard. And what I love about him, and it goes into how his movie or how the books got so easily translated to movies, and he writes the way that people speak, whether it's correct English or not, and it's what does someone call him also? The poet laureate of wild asshole of wild. I'm going to get this right. The poet laureate of wild assholes with revolvers.
That's a great description.
Yeah, that's Elmore Leonard to a T, and I got to know him. I think the only one of his books that I read before I saw the movie was Out of Sight, and that adaptation. There's a reason why it's one of my favorite movies, because it was adapted so well, and whether like the short stories as well with Fire in the Hole, that became so much more fully realized thanks to him being on the writing staff in the early episodes of Justified before he passed away. I think he passed away right before the final season was about there, maybe the second, maybe 2 seasons after he passed away. But Elmore Leonard he gets gritty. He writes and just the flow of language. It's real language and flawed heroes. He writes those so well, brilliantly. And it's Elmore Leonard, my numero dos.
Yeah, I think his dialogue was really unique and really incredible. It was like just like poetry. And I think that's, if I was to make a criticism of a lot of modern writers, it's that they don't have a unique voice, or their characters all have the same voice. They're not unique. And Elmore Leonard had a very unique voice, but his characters were all individuals as well. And that reflected in the dialogue. So I think that's harder to do than people think, but he definitely was a master of it.
And I also liked how characters would float into other stories. It was just like that Elmore Leonard universe. Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
So rest in peace to one of America's finest writers, whether you want to call it crime fiction or not. So yeah. Which now takes us to Christine for her number one.
My number one is an American author, Clarissa Pinkola Estes. She is best known for her, I think it was about 94 that it came out, Women Who Run with the Wolves. She writes about the wild woman archetype. She's a storyteller, a cantadora. She rewrote Grimm's fairy tale. Well, not rewrote, but she, has done a book on Grimm's fairy tales. Sharing the Grimm fairy tale and then doing her own analysis of it from, what it means and, the women that are featured in it, and just really, really interesting. She's written a lot of, folk tale type stories from her own perspective. It's really interesting reading anyway. But yeah, I love her. She's amazing. And she is a college professor now as well, and continues to write. And she's just awesome.
What was the name again?
Clarissa Pinkola Estes. She wrote Women Who Run with the Wolves.
Okay. I'm gonna remember that one for later.
Yeah, and she just she's really great about that whole storyteller mythic, and a lot of it is steeped in tradition. She is a first generation person here in the United States. Her family is all from Mexico, and she pulls heavily on tradition and the tradition of storytelling in her upbringing, and that cantadora singing, around the campfire sort of thing is just, it's really cool and love it. And it feeds a lot into, with what I do with my women's group, and just, it's a neat archetype. I like it.
And she makes it official that all of us now have a pick who is still alive. It's a great country, folks. Got a lot to pick from, even ones that are in the here and now. Love it. American authors.
Yeah. I also had a couple of honorable mentions. Of course, one of my favorite playwrights, Mamet, which I think somebody else is going to talk about. But then also when somebody was talking about something earlier and I went, oh my gosh, yes, oh my gosh. I actually really, really loved Ayn Rand, her Anthem and Atlas Shrugged. Of course, it took me like a year and a half to read Atlas Shrugged, but and I wish I would have been Ayn Rand's editor. Like, for goodness sakes, like, take out this 85 pages, take out this 50 pages. That book did not need to be 900 plus pages. I am telling you. Her other books, she had it right with them being super thin. I
was going to say, she knew.
Yeah.
Whatever gift she had, humility wasn't one of them, and that does show in the length of her books.
Yeah, well, yeah, some of them, yeah, because then she's got Anthem, which is like 100 pages or 150 pages. Like, okay, tighten up here.
Right.
I love the ideal of John Galt. I refer to the hidden country in the middle of Colorado a lot, and yeah, that would be a great idea, especially in our culture today. But some of the objectivism ideas, great. I do know some people who are very fanatical about objectivism, and I'm like, yeah, maybe not so much, but interesting thoughts. I love authors that make me think, and yeah, that's another one that I wanted to mention.
Excellent call. Yeah. All right, Jim, to you for your number one.
Okay, so I'm going to start with my honorable mentions, and I will apologize in advance if I once again step on your number one, Eric, but I'm going to try not to.
No, you already stepped on, and it's already been stepped upon. So
it's already happened, so I'll just wipe my shoes and move on. Okay. So, my honorable mentions, Jack London, Theodore Geisel, a.k.a. Dr. Seuss, H.P. Lovecraft, Michael Crichton, and I've been trying to avoid any pure poets, but I am going to mention Emily Dickinson because she's my favorite poet, and I cannot talk about American authors without including her. So my number one, however, is Mark Twain, and only because I don't think I could put anyone else in the number one spot. I think he is probably my favorite American author, and just absolutely brilliant and so influential. He basically invented modern humor and American humor. Obviously, there were great writers around at his time, but he was able to kind of take and distill everything great about 19th century American writing and add such a wit to it that it made it, shall we say, fun and palatable for audiences. Obviously, he's best known for the books we read as kids, like Huck Finn, Tom Sawyer, Prince and the Pauper. But he obviously spent a lot of his time writing satirical essays and news articles, kind of poking fun at the powerful at the time and some of the things he saw wrong about society, and just an amazing public speaker. I mean, this guy was so witty that when he wasn't writing, people would hire him just to show up at their events and just talk about whatever he wanted to talk about, and amuse them and educate them at the same time. I mean, basically everything this guy said and touched turned to gold. He was amazing, and I don't think there's ever been anyone like him since. Obviously, he's responsible for a lot of the quotes that people are always passing around the internet. And like let's say you're an idiot and say you're a member of Congress, but I repeat myself. So many of those kind of little witticisms that are commonplace, he's responsible for, and he really kind of set the tone for for American humor and satire that followed in the last couple hundred years. So yeah, absolutely incredible author, amazing person, fascinating personality, and my number one.
Well, what Jim said, that's my number one too. I'm just gonna, everything you said. Twice you've stolen. Yeah, twice, but that's okay. As I said at the top, there are so many, and these aren't going to be my true number one. So I'm just going to throw a few more. I mean, but just to piggyback a little bit more with him, like we don't have a James Thurber, we don't have an O. Henry, I think, without Mark Twain setting the stage for that satire, for that witticism and humor that he brought. And yeah, and Mark Twain, and I'm glad that Christine and I on the half cross country trip, which leads to the different background you see here, folks. There's no shelves. This is my very humble room at my parents' abode here in Ohio, and but yeah, while we're part of the trip, we stopped in Hannibal, Missouri, Twain's birthplace, and just strolled through downtown where he once walked, and just he was a Midwesterner through and through, and just captured Americana beautifully. And everything you said, Jim, I second, third, and fourth. It's just Twain was the man, absolutely. But a couple of my honorable mentions: Michael Crichton. He was someone who kind of rekindled my love in science fiction. After Isaac Asimov, and when I was in junior high, I read some Asimov and Ray Bradbury, and then like early 90s, and just my parents had a few of his books, like Andromeda Strain, and I'm trying to think what the other big one that he had. Westworld. Things like that they had. Or was Westworld just a screenplay? But no, just Crichton's writing, just science fiction. The guy was a brilliant writer, and so
Jurassic Park.
Well, Jurassic Park, and what I liked about Jurassic Park, and what was good about that one, they did a different typeface for that, and you didn't know this till you got to the end of the book, and it said it. But this typeface was designed to speed your reading up, and just a little tweak on the font, and just the way that movie, because the sense of urgency and the dread and everything with the dinosaurs and all that, just it really increased the tension in the book, not knowing it till you get to the end and read that. Unless you're like Harry, Billy Crystal's Harry in Harry Met Sally, and you read the end first and you discovered that. But that's neither here nor there. I read the right way you're supposed to read a book. Also, another one thing about me, because at that time, early 90s, I was reading a lot of historical books, or like I was really reading mafia books, real crime, not real crime, but yeah, I guess it was real crime, not detective fiction. But Nicholas Pileggi, I love Wise Guy, which became Goodfellas, and then Casino, both great books, and just detailed mob life, which I've had a fascination with since I was surrounded by gangsters. legitimate businessman in Youngstown, Ohio. So Nicholas Pileggi, a nod to him as well. And also science fiction after we call it Blade Runner. I was a big Blade Runner fan when that came out in theaters. And so I went back and I read Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, Philip K. Dick, and then read more of it, like Running Man. And no, I'm sorry, Running Man was a Richard Bachman book. That was Stephen King. Total Recall was written by Philip K. Dick. That eventually became the movie. But yeah, it's someone actually read the books before the movie came out, strangely enough. But as you can tell, folks, there's a theme. I like, apparently, movies that translate well, or books that translate well to movies. That's who I am. Makes it go down a little bit easier sometimes, but or just read the book in its full. But those are my honorable mentions, and there you have it, folks. American authors as part of our Threefer. We're now going to skip, and Christine brought him up a little bit earlier, and kind of a prelude to American Playwrights, and again a plethora and theater. Oh, wait, here we go. You can see that hymn a little bit better. I'm not completely centered. For those of you just listening to this, you have no idea what I just did. I raised my hand. Theater, partial theater major, and so this the Playwrights was fun for me. But yeah, as Christine alluded to earlier, David Mamet with her. But I'm going to then pass it to her. Maybe there's another playwright that she came up with besides David Mamet.
I screwed up.
Oh.
I forgot that was our +1. I completely blanked and forgot that was our +1. So yeah, I'm gonna do Mamet, but I'll let you talk about it more. Yeah, just the staccato and the way that he wrote writes, and Chicago. Of course, I was born and raised in Chicago, and his oh God, what is the name of the play about last night? Sexual
Perversity in Chicago.
Thank you. Sexual Perversity in Chicago. Great one. And Glengarry Glen Ross, and so many other amazing plays. State in
Maine.
Thank you. State in Maine. See how my memory is. It's been 30 years since my degree, but yeah. And I have to say it with this disclaimer, though. Yes, I have an English degree and a journalism minor. However, I write and edit for a living. So it is very rare that I pick up a book and actually read these days, because I read for a living. So it's like impossible for me to get through most reading when I'm like not working. I just want to sit in front of a TV and be served, served content. I don't want to have to make my eyes go back and forth. Yeah.
I will attest to this, folks. Christine was very excited to get the Bono memoirs. And so that's maybe you're a third of the way through after a year and a half. But again,
I'm actually half the way through.
Halfway through. Very good. There you have it.
In the last 2 weeks, I've probably read about 5 chapters. So I'm actually a lot farther along in it than I have in the last year. But it is really good. Super good.
Well, here's a goal, because you brought it up earlier. Maybe you can finish it more quickly than it took you to read Atlas Shrugged.
Perhaps. Yeah.
Perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
May chance, as one of the children says around the house.
Yes,
May chance.
Yeah.
And by child, I think that child is probably me. But anyway.
So that being said, I am going to let the things flow, because I screwed up and mentioned Mamet too early.
Well,
you cannot mention Mamet too early, okay?
Thank you.
You can't, as far as I'm concerned, and this is why I'm gonna I'll just get it out of the way now, piggybacking off of you, because he's the greatest playwright, American playwright since Arthur Miller. So greatest living playwright right now to me is David Mamet. He is to America what Tom Stoppard is to England, in terms of being just a wordsmith, and just like his staccato, his fast-paced style. It's just it's hard to match, and you just know you're reading or listening to Mamet dialogue. Absolutely.
Yep. And when it's time to talk about David Mamet, ABC, always be closing. Okay.
Or always be clutch. Nice job, Jim. Nice job.
Right to you.
Put that donut down. Donuts are for hitters only. Oh, do I have your attention now? You think your teammates want to be stranded out there on the bases? You think they want you to go down looking at strike 3? You going up there looking for a walk? Get the bat off your shoulder. Put the ball in play. Dare the other team to get you out. A, B, C. A always. B, B. C, clutch. Always be clutch. First prize, immortality. Second prize, pair of batting gloves. Third prize, you're benched.
Yeah, can we put that banner up to remind people that we now have all over the place apparel going on right now, so you can get that. For those you're watching, you just saw Christine put the banner up, but if you're listening only, you can head over to Roundin, 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 no G, Roundin third productions.launchcart.store/shop. And you can get your all over the place apparel. You can get
It's actually a forward slash.
It's a forward slash. Thank you.
Yeah.
I knew when it came out of my mouth. That's not backslash, forward slash. Just say slash. And we're not talking about the guy from Guns N' Roses.
Yeah.
So, so /shop. And just all over the place apparel over there. You've got the baseball themed stuff as well. And A, always, B, B, C, clutch, or closing. Jim, over to you for your number one playwright, your +1.
All right. So my personal favorite playwrights I'm going to be honorable mentions because I just feel like who I consider to be the best has to be my +1. But my personal favorites, I'm obviously going to second or rather third you guys on David Mamet. And I'm also going to mention Neil Simon, who wrote some really fun and enjoyable plays.
Great. There's another one.
What can I say? It's a talent. All right. So my
talent tonight.
That's right. My +1.
You sirs are muddy and bloody, man. Muddy and bloody.
Just we're stepping on our toes every chance we get. All right. So yeah, my number 1 is Tennessee Williams. Really amazing writer, and obviously specialized in, shall we say, eccentric and highly dysfunctional families mostly in the American South. Obviously heavily influenced by his own childhood, and really brought a very personal touch to these stories that really nevertheless captured something about American families and American society in the 20th century that is, I think, is really unparalleled. And just really wrote in a character-based way that a lot of playwrights weren't at the time. And just, an incredible writer. His dialogue, his monologues were really just off the charts brilliant, and so powerful to listen to on the stage or on film for that matter. Can't go wrong with his stuff. It's maybe a bit dated nowadays, but absolutely brilliant stuff. And it inspired one of the funniest King of the Hill episodes of all time. I have to mention that when Bill goes off to visit his eccentric family in Louisiana. It's just, look it up if you haven't seen it, but it's one of the funniest things I've ever seen on TV. It's great.
Yes. Great scenes in The Simpsons as well, when Marge was in Streetcar.
That's right. Yeah. So, so that's my pick.
Well, you see, you stole all my honorable mentions too, but that just goes. I mean, these guys are great. Tennessee Williams, and as I mentioned earlier, a theater or partial theater major graduate, and Tennessee Williams, Neil Simon, David Mamet, and a couple others I'm going to mention in a second. These are the guys that you picture your monologues from, because the writing is so good, it's so rich. You just to best portray what you can bring as an actor. These are the guys whose words you want to use, and it's Yeah, and as I said to David Mamet when I had the very fortunate chance to meet him, made a complete ass of myself, and just said, "Oh my God, I slipped into total theater guy," and say, "Oh my God, your monologue, I picked yourself for monologue, but you shouldn't do a David Mamet monologue until you're at least 30 years old." And there's life experience there, and maybe I shouldn't have taken David Mamet monologues for certain things. But the ABC Always Be closing, which was technically written, was not in the original play. It was written specifically for Alec Baldwin for the movie. So the coffee monologue. So so just showing what a great actor that Alec Baldwin is. Occasionally when he's not. Well, anyway, we all know about
moving
Mr.
on.
Baldwin. Yes, it's a great monologue though from
Yes.
Alec Baldwin. So, but Mamet, but I've got two guys, and actually, and speaking of theater, I talked with AJ just to find out former guest as far as AJ Laird, because he's Captain Theater in my book, and he brought up someone who is actually a student of one of the guys I'm going to mention, and two of the other guys that writers that I would choose, and I think everyone theater-wise picks these guys, again, for such the rich language, but Sam Shepard is one of them, whether it's True West or Buried Child, Fool for Love, Cowboy Mouth. It's just the back and forth between two. He just has such great dialogues, and it's just great it's great scene study stuff or monologues, depending on how long the one person wants to talk to the other person in the scene. But yeah, Sam Shepard, brilliant. And also Christopher Durang, who and I was just very sad to learn in doing my research with this, he passed away in April, and from aphasia, which my mother has unfortunately suffered from aphasia, or suffers from aphasia, and he died from complications from that. But Christopher Durang's language, and he's a fellow Catholic, or was a fellow Catholic, and Sister Mary Ignatius explains it for you. I won't get this right. Sister Mary Ignatius explains it all for you, and it's just great biting satire. And I'm a Catholic who thinks much like Kevin Smith, question Catholicism. I mean, still you believe in the faith, but there's certain things, and Durang was great at that. Also, Baby with the Bathwater was another great play to take monologues and do auditions with. And Identity Crisis, another great one for that. And he also wrote Beyond Therapy, which of course got turned into a movie. He wasn't too happy with the movie. I think the movie's good, but the play is better. Christopher Durang, another great guy with dialogue, so if I had to pick one of those, which was not David Mamet or Tennessee Williams or Neil Simon, I would probably go with Sam Shepard as my favorite playwright. He just captured Americana so well, and just great dialogue, just brilliant stuff from him. And Buried Child was a play that AJ was in, and with AJ, and AJ clued me into David Lindsay Abaire, who's been winning Tonys a lot lately, and with the play Rabbit Hole, Kimberly Akimbo. And he also, Christine, you'll like this, he wrote the book that the musical High Fidelity was based on. This David Lindsay Abaire did. And so it's still based on Hornby's book.
Say that again.
He wrote the book for the musical of High Fidelity. There's a musical.
I didn't even know that was a musical.
I didn't either. I'm glad AJ clued me into this guy. And the character of Rob is now set in New York City. And it's essentially the same play, but it's this David Lindsay Abaire, but like I said, he was a student of Christopher Durang, so a lot of similarities with writing style. And this guy, the list of people who perform his plays, and Cynthia Nixon won a Tony, and this guy's won a lot of Tonys as well. But Cynthia Nixon, Tyne Daly, John Slattery, David Hyde Pierce, Frances McDormand, Tate Donovan, they've all performed in plays by David Lindsay Abaire. And I'm glad AJ brought it up, and I'm going to look into this guy a lot more because he's got some movies.
They rewrote the Nick Hornby book.
Oh yeah, so it's a musical now, but it's much like it's an adaptation, much like the one where they said the one for John Cusack in Chicago, and then the one the Hulu series, and so they've done it and they made it into a musical, which kind of makes sense with all the tunes in it. So yeah, but I'm going to dig further into that one. But thank you, AJ. AJ Laird, former guest here on All Over the Place, and longtime friend, and theater god, lowercase g. So, but yeah, David Lindsay of Bear. But that there you have it, folks. That's our threefer for this week's installment of All Over the Place, plus one American Playwright. God bless the USA and all of our amazing writers.
You're here.
Heck yeah, absolutely.
So as always, folks, thanks for listening. Don't forget to share, like, and share with at least one person today. Head on over, get yourself your Round and Third production apparel, whether it's the baseball stuff or All Over the Place. And I got to tell you, the All Over the Place shirts are they look great. Christine's got the tank top. There's stuff there for everybody, male, female. Much like our good buddy Mark Daly, we've got stuff specifically fitted for women and apparel over there. So go check it out over there at roundin-third-productions.launchcart. Oh, shoot, thank you. I was there. launchcart.store/shop. Yeah, the new teeth again there, folks. They're coming about. So, hey, Christine, Jim, awesome list. And Jim, thank you for, and Jim listening to the ones that I did just goes to show how awesome these writers in America are and how influential they are. So Jim, Christine, thank you. And we'll be back real soon here, folks, on All Over the Place. Thanks for listening and or watching.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All Over the Place, where the fun sanity never ends.